If you're visiting this morning, my name's Cody Graves. I'm the minister here at First Christian Church, and we are finishing up a series today on the book of Revelation. Now, if you haven't been here, don't let that scare you. Don't let that frighten you. This is not one of those, if you haven't seen the previously on, you're not going to get it. So don't worry about that, okay? Don't worry about that. What we've been talking about in this book of Revelation is we've been trying to boil it down. We've been trying to kind of simplify it because it's a scary topic. It's kind of a scary book. And what we've been asking, the kind of big driving question that we've been asking is, well, what would it have meant to the churches that he wrote to? Because John wrote to churches, and then they were going through some stuff. They were experiencing persecution. They were experiencing hardships, and they had just lost their minister, John. He gets exiled, and now he's going to write to them. And if they get this book and they look at it and they say, none of this makes any sense. In fact, none of this is going to make any sense to anybody until the 21st century. John would have been a really bad guy. I mean, he'd have been a pretty crummy minister to do that. So we've been just trying to ask, well, what did John mean by this? And what was he saying? And more importantly, what did it mean to them? And how is that going to affect my life? Today, we're ending the series, just the way the book ends, by talking about heaven. We're going to talk about heaven. You see, in this book, written to churches who are struggling, in this book, written to people who are experiencing real issues and having real problems, John ends his book by talking about heaven. And he holds it up to say, guys, keep with it, because there's this thing called heaven coming. You see, being a Christian isn't easy. I know, most times you don't hear ministers say things like that or whatever, but I want to tell you, being a Christian's hard. It's not easy, it's not simple. Lots of things you're asked to do don't come naturally. And if you've been a Christian for any length of time, then you know that it is not always easy. There are times where you say, I don't want to forgive that person. They crossed too many lines. They didn't just cross one line, Cody, they crossed the next 10. No, I don't want to forgive that person. No, I don't want to try to, they deserve to hear what I have to say. They deserve my anger and my wrath. I don't want to do that. There are so many situations that your faith asks you to do something that isn't really natural. It doesn't come easy. It's hard. Being a Christian isn't always easy. The churches the 7 churches that John writes to in the book of Revelation, they got that. As a Christian, there was always that chance that at dinner time, a centurion would kick in the door, come in, grab your husband by the hair of his head, and drag him out, and you would never see him again. That was always a possibility. And so being a Christian wasn't easy. You chose to be a Christian. You knew there's going to be difficulties. This is not going to be easy. Paul understood this. The Apostle Paul understood this. When in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, he calls the Christian life a race. You run a race. And man, running a race isn't easy. It's not just like, I'm going to enter this race and the gun goes off and I'm just going to kind of start strolling. That's not what you do, man. You go all out. You give it everything you have. It's not an easy thing. It's hard. He says, a Christian life's like running a race. You go all out. It's all or nothing. It's not always easy. And so the question then is it all worth it? If the race is so hard, why run it? Why run the race at all? Why? If there's going to be all these times, if there's going to be these situations where I have to give up, where I have to sacrifice, if there's going to be these times where I have to say, well, I don't want to do this, but Jesus does, so I'm going to do what Jesus wants. If that's the case, why run the race? Why not just do what I want? Why not just do what I feel like doing? Why worry about all this extra stuff? Why run the race? Well, there's a really good reason for that. I've got a couple people that are going to come up and help me now. Oh, no. I misplaced something. Oh, that's right. We're fine. A couple people, the people I talked about beforehand, Preston, we got a couple people that come up happening. Why run the race? Why run the race? All this stuff that you might have to give up, all these things you have to give up, why run? Okay, Preston, you want to stand up here? It's real simple. All you got to do is just hold this. You just stand up here and hold this. And then look out and look pretty. And then I want you to just take it and just go. And just go out the room, go out the building, just go with it, all right? Just keep going. And it doesn't have to be taught either. It can once it goes slack, don't feel like you got to just stretch it. Just keep going. All right, so here's the deal. Just keep going. Just keep going. Don't stop. Just go. Go to the parking lot. All right, so here's the deal. Hopefully eventually this gets slack, because that's going to be weird if this is just... Okay, so Your life, all of your lives are this string. Your life here on earth is a tiny dot that's right up here at the beginning. And the thing is, the reason why this race becomes so relevant, the reason why it becomes so worth it is everyone here has this huge amount of life ahead of them. Everyone here has something that's going to happen after you die. After the 80, 90, 100 years, however long that your dot lasts, after that, you've got all this ahead of you. But here's the thing. What this looks like will be different based on what you did in the dot. That what this looks like, whether this is heaven and this is pleasant and this is incredible and wonderful, or whether this is suffering, whether this is discomfort, whether this is something else, will be affected by what you do in the dot. It's like Kyle, if I gave you this Twix, could I have your truck? No. But you can eat the Twix now. And the truck, you're not going to see for a while. I mean, for at least 30 minutes. You're not going to... Are you sure you don't want the Twix for the truck? For 30 minutes? No, I mean, no, I get the truck for... Oh, forever. Okay. If anyone here, you're not going to see your house for a while. You're not going to be in your home for a little bit. Would anyone in here give up your home? Give me your home. I'll give you this. You can eat the Twix now. You're not going to see your home for like an hour. You can eat the Twix now. No one would do that. But you see, the problem is we forget we have all of this. And we trade in 30 minutes with this dot. And we give up everything else. Everything else. You see, we get so caught up in the dot. We get so, I don't feel like I need to sacrifice. I don't think running this race is that important because we've forgotten that there is all this else that's going to be affected by the decisions that you make in the next 80, 90, 100 years. All right, thanks, Preston. You can go get him. He'll probably be at the country club. Go let him, bring him back in. Why is this race worth it? I mean, if you've been a Christian for a while, you've had times where you say, I don't know if this is worth it. This is hard. This is difficult. This isn't easy. The churches in the book of Revelation, man, they would have been experiencing persecution. They would have been experiencing hardships. It would have been hard for them to work. To even at times, they would have probably leave town because, and why? Is this worth it? As you're leaving your life, as you're leaving town, walking on a dusty road, going to somewhere else where people maybe don't know you're Christian or aren't going to persecute you as heavily, you got to ask, is it worth it? And John's trying to say, yes, because if you endure patiently, if you can follow Jesus for the next 50, 60, 70 years, if you can, what you do in the dot, man, it determines everything else. What you do in the dot determines, what you do in this short amount of time, it determines what the rest of your life is going to look like. So yes, it's worth it. Why run the race? Well, because the race is going to affect millions of years. Yes, the race is worth it. So, the race is worth it. And Paul realizes this. We talked in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, he says, we're running a race. It's not easy. But in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, he says this, if there's no resurrection, if there's no rest of the string, if it's just the dot, then man, Christians should be pitied above everyone else. Because Christians give up a lot. Christians sacrifice a lot. They do a lot of things that other people wouldn't do. And you know what? If there's no resurrection, if there's nothing after this, if when you die it's over, man, people should look at us and say, those poor Christians. Because we don't look out for number one. We don't try to get. We actually give and sacrifice. And because of the rest of the string, man, that makes the race so worth it. But what's the prize we're running after? Man, okay, the race is worth running because we don't want to go to the bad place, right? But what's the good place? What's the prize that we're running after? That's where we get to our text today. We're in Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 through 7, and John holds out this prize. He says, this is the prize. This is the thing that you're running after. You do what you do in the dot. You run the race. You make the sacrifices because you want this eventual outcome. And this is what he says in 21. Starting in verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the old earth and the old heaven had disappeared, and the sea was also gone. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, "Look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them, and he will wipe every tear from their eyes. And there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever." And the one sitting on the throne said, "Look, I am making everything new." And then he said to me, "Write this down, for what I tell you is trustworthy and true." And he also said, "It is finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To all who are thirsty, I will give freely from the spring of the water of life. All who are victorious, all who run the race, will inherit all these blessings. And I will be their God, and they will be my children." John gives us this picture of heaven, and there's a few things that we need to kind of clear the air. Heaven is not going to be you standing in a choir singing for 10,000 years. Okay, that's not what John talks about. That's not how he describes that. But sometimes we get this picture of heaven as here's Jesus, and he's this choir master, and he's up there, and we're all singing, and we sing through the book, and there's like 10,000 songs in the book. And then when we get to the end, he goes, "All right, let's run it again." And we run it again, and we start singing. And man, I mean, if you know someone a couple row seats down, you say, "Oh, hey, there's Bill. Hey, how you doing? How you doing, man?" And he says, "Oh, hey, good to see you." And Jesus taps his podium and goes, hey, up here. Don't be talking. Don't talking. We're singing. That's not what heaven's going to be. That's not what heaven is. Now, some of us have picked that up, and somewhere along the way, someone was like, "Man, I love singing. I hope heaven's singing all the time." And then we just got that picture. But that's not what it's going to be, okay? That's not what it's going to be. Heaven is not going to be us sitting on clouds with harps. Heaven is not going to be standing in line. That's not what it's described as in the Bible. You see, heaven is resurrection. And resurrection is the defeat of death. If all heaven is we die and we leave and we go somewhere and sit on a cloud and play harp, if all heaven is we die, we leave, and our spirit lives on, then death hasn't been defeated. You see, what death is God's good creation. God made things good. I mean, when he finished making things, he said, "This is good." And God's good creation ending, that's death. And that's not right. There's something wrong there. God didn't make creation to end. He didn't make things to well, this will be good for a couple years and then it's going to rust and go away. It's going to die. No, God's good creation is supposed to last. And death is the end of that. Death is the enemy. It's a bad thing. So the reversal of death isn't we die and we go on as a spirit and we live somewhere. No, the reversal of death is we get raised from the dead. Is we get resurrected. Is we come back to life. That's the ultimate goal. God doesn't just say, "Well, you guys kind of messed things up. Come up here with me and we'll have a party and we'll just leave that." No, that's not what God wants. God wants to remake the earth. In fact, heaven is going to actually look a lot like this, but it's just not going to have any sin. It's not going to be broken. Heaven's going to be the best day you ever had, every day. Because I guarantee you, the best day that you ever had, the time you look back in your life and you say, "Man, that moment, that day, it was so good, it was so precious." I guarantee you that was creation working the way it was supposed to. When you got married, when you had a child, when you were in community and your old friends were there and your family, and it was this Thanksgiving meal and everyone was laughing and sharing, and it was just the greatest experience, I guarantee you that was creation working the way it was supposed to. And heaven is going to be like that every day because creation's going to work. It's not going to be broken by sin. There's not going to be betrayal and pain and heartache. God says he's making all things new. Now, when he says that, he doesn't mean new as in chronological. There's two words for new. There's two words for new in the Bible. Kainos and neos. Those are the two Greek words for new. Okay? Neos is this. Old money. New money. Okay? It's nicer. It's chronologically new. This thing is old, it's beat up, but I'm going to go get a new car. It's actually the same car, it's just shinier. Okay? The same car, it's just better. It's newer. Okay? Old money, beat up, new money. Same thing, just newer. That's neos. Old money, new money. This is the word kainos. And what this is it's the same thing. These are both money, but this is a different kind of money. It's a different kind of money, kainos. It means new, but different. It's related, it's similar, it's the same thing, but it's a little different. It's changed. Oftentimes it's been enhanced. new money. When God says he's making all things new, he's not just saying, well, when you get here, it'll be new for you because it's newer chronologically. It's not like that. No, he's going to take our old, beat-up, sin-filled world, and he's going to give us a new one. He's going to say, this is the way I meant for things to run. This is the way I meant community to be. There shouldn't be all the lying and the betrayal that you experience, the friends who have stabbed you in the back, the people who have said things that weren't true, the gossip that's ruined. I never intended for that. This new world's not going to have that. All the pain that people have caused you because of their jealousy, because of their envy, because of their lust, because of whatever, that's not going to happen here. I didn't intend for that. This new world's not going to have that. All the pain that you caused others and the guilt that left you with, that's not going to happen here. I didn't intend for that. I'm going to make a new world without any of that. This heaven that we're going to go to, this reward, the prize that we're running for, it's not going to be boring. It's not going to be us, just doing the same thing repeatedly over and over and over and over again. No, it's going to actually be a lot like this world. But man, it's going to be the way it was supposed to run. It's going to be God reversing sin. It's going to be God reversing the struggle. And he's going to say, I'm going to make everything new. And in fact, later on, it talks about Jerusalem coming down out of heaven and resting on earth. Jerusalem represents God's people. It's not an actual place. It's not a city. It represents God's people. God's people are going to come and they're going to reside here on this new earth. This new earth. That's the prize we're running towards. We run this race because, man, what we do in the dot, what we do with the little bit of time we have here, our decisions have a huge impact on the rest of the way. And the rest of the way, man, if we run the race for Jesus, the rest of the way, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. Here's the thing, though. Because the rest of the way, because that prize looks a certain way, we run differently. What does this mean for us right now? The fact that heaven looks this way, the fact that this is supposed to be run this way, what does that mean for us right now? You see, the goal, and if you're in a race, the goal of the race determines the kind of race you run. The goal of the race determines the kind of race you run. We've got some pictures, and we're gonna show us the first one there. Okay, so this is a goal. You're running for this goal, to cross this line. I kind of gave this away. You're supposed to cross this line. If you're in a race where this is the goal, what do? Well, you run. Okay, this is a running race. You can tell that. The goal we're running towards is this finish line. It looks like this. There are lanes. This track is an oval. The goal we're running towards, it determines how we run the race, how we perform in the race. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so here, I'm not backing any NFL team. Don't want to hate me. There were several of them with championship rings. Anyway, this is the goal. Your goal is to win a Super Bowl ring. If your goal is to win a Super Bowl ring, you're not going to be swimming. You're not going to be flying. You're going to be playing football. Okay, the goal determines what you do. The goal, the thing that you're striving for, determines what you do in the meantime. You don't have it yet, but you're working towards it, and so there's a goal. Let's go to the next one. If the goal is a checkered flag, you better not be running in that race, okay? You better be driving, okay? And you get in a fast car, and you drive in a circle over and over and over and over and over again. I guess it's a sport and whatever, and then you just go on. No, and if this is the goal, then you do a certain thing. You're not going to run. You're not going to play football to get the checkered flag, okay? You're going to drive. Now, the goal determines the kind of race you run. As Christians, if our goal is, Jesus, take me away. Take me away, Jesus. I can't wait to leave this place. If that's our goal, then, man, we can have a seat. We don't have to worry about much. Jesus is going to come one day. He's going to take me away, and I don't have to worry about much. Just take me away, Jesus. We can have a seat. Jesus really doesn't have to have a whole lot of say between my Monday to Saturday life. I'm not going to be a terrible person. I'm going to try and be a good person. But let's be real. I don't really need to connect with Jesus. I just need to do my thing on Sunday and wait for him to come back and take me away. If my goal is Jesus, take me away, then Jesus doesn't really need to be a part of my family, my friends. In fact, Jesus is just a personal thing. It's just me and Jesus. In fact, Jesus is a get out of jail free card that I have in my back pocket. And I'm glad I do, because one day I'm going to die, and I want Jesus to take me away. If that's our goal, that's the kind of Christian we become. But if our goal is, Jesus, come here. Jesus, we want you to come here. We want your kingdom to come to earth. We want your will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. If our goal is, Jesus, we want you to come here and fix this world. If our goal is one day God's going to make a new world where there's not going to be any poverty or pain or death or crying or betrayal or sin, if that's our goal, then man, why not get started now? Because I can do something about that now. If my goal is Jesus, take me away, I'm just going to kind of sit back, relax, do my thing, and wait for Jesus to take me away. But if my goal is, Jesus, I want your kingdom to come here, I want you to come here, if that's our goal, then we might as well get started now. If our goal is God's perfect reign on earth and there's not going to be any poverty, then we can get started now. We can give to the poor now. We can do that right now. Why not? If that's the goal, then why don't we just get started on it? If that's what we want to have happen. If our goal is Jesus coming back and there's no longer any betrayal and there's no longer any lies and dishonesty, why not be people of the truth? Why not be people who are honest now? Why not be people who make honest business deals? Why not be people who treat others fairly now? If our goal is no injustice where there are tyrants and leaders who are ruling over people and hurting people, if that's our goal, why not get started on that now? Why not fight against injustice now? Why not help those who are displaced and help those who are being forced from their homes? And why not do that now? Because if that's the goal, we can get started. The goal determines the kind of race we run. And if we're all fly away someday Christians, then man, I can sit down, I can take it easy, I don't have to worry about much. But if we're Jesus, come here. Jesus, we need you here. Jesus, I want your kingdom to come here. Then let's get ready. Man, if the king's coming to town, we should clean up. If that's our goal, man, it changes things right now. You see, that's the funny thing about heaven. Sometimes we think heaven, man, it's this far-off thing. It's this later thing. It's out there somewhere, and maybe we kind of put it out of our mind. That's not the way heaven's supposed to be. You see, heaven, when it's thought about biblically, when it's the way the Bible presents it, heaven affects your life right now. It even affects your life right now even more than it might later. Later on, you're going to be there, and you're going to be like, hey, this is wonderful. This is fantastic. But I wouldn't have gotten here if I didn't think about heaven earlier. Heaven affects your life right now, because heaven isn't us just flying off and being somewhere on a cloud. No, heaven is Jesus coming here and ruling here in the perfect kingdom of God, restoring the world, reversing death. That's what we want. There's this quote from we're going through a video series on our Wednesday nights, and this guy had a quote on it, and it's a really good quote. It's a haunting quote. That's what he says. He says, do you really believe that what you believe is really real? Do you really believe that what you say you believe is really real? Because if it is, it'll change everything. Do you really believe that your life continues after you close your eyes here? Do you really believe that? That when you're done here, that there's something more to that what's inside you, that there's something more than just the molecules and the atoms that make up our body, that there's something more than just electrons firing in our brain. Do you believe that there's something more to me and something more to you? Do you really believe that? Because if you really believe that there's something more than that, then man, that'll change a lot. Do you really believe that Jesus' rule, that his throne is going to be on a recreated, renewed earth? If you really believe in heaven, if you really believe heaven's really real, man, it changes everything right now. What happens in the dot becomes so important. The race we run becomes so meaningful. It's not just random acts. No, it's purposeful acts. Because I'm running a race for Jesus. And I want the rest of my life to look a certain way. Do you really believe that what you believe is really real? If we could be a church, if we could be a community of people that had this vision of heaven, that we really believed that heaven was real and that it was offered to everyone, and that it was Jesus' renewed kingdom, that was his renewed lordship of this world. If we really believed that, man, our church, we could do some crazy things in our community. We could do some unbelievable things in each other's lives. We could change our town. We could change our state. We could change our nation. If we really believe, man, there's this time that's going to come where Jesus is going to rule. If we really believe that, man, things would change. My life would change. Your life would change. we could be a change for Jesus. The funny thing about heaven is that when you really get this good picture of it, man, it changes you right now. Would you join me in prayer real quick? God, we love you. We just pray that we can be people who have this vision of heaven. That we can be people who have this idea of what heaven's going to be like. That we can be people who we've caught this glimpse of heaven. And it's changed our lives. That we want, can we be, God, I just pray we can be a people who desperately want you to reign here. So God, I just pray that we can have the courage to do that. That we can have the courage to be citizens of heaven and not citizens of this world. God, that we can have the courage to be people who want to clean up before the King gets here. I love you, Father, and I pray this in your Son's name. Amen.